It's our neighbor. And then the issues she presented, it's almost the same as the issues we have in Liberia. So, yes, but just so I can identify myself. Like Madam Jalo mentioned, Liberia, it's a country that also came from war. But then, after the war, there was development, and government were looking for that direct in finances to be able to support the development of the country. But then also, there is high levels of poverty. So, investors come in and they want to help, and they come with development. But then the government of Liberia made it easy for communities that have forests. But let me say this, we don't say indigenous people in Liberia. And it's not because there are not indigenous people there, but we call ourselves local communities because the same way an indigenous person will identify themselves as the same way local communities in Liberia identify ourselves. We are very distinct, we have distinct cultures, distinct territories, and our way of life is the same way. But it's just so that we don't call ourselves indigenous people. So sometimes other people say, yeah, there are no indigenous people, but there are. Because they have lived centuries on the land, they have links, strong ties to the lands that we have. In 2006, the Liberia government came in with the National Forestry Reform Law that gave rise to the reform process of inclusiveness, supporting communities, helping communities to be included in natural resource governance. In 2009, the Forestry Reform Law gave birth to what is called the Community Rights Law that my colleagues were talking about yesterday. It supported or it helped local communities to have a forest land. And that forest land is so respected that everybody who wants to do an activity, whether logging, whatever, within the community, you need to go through the process of FPIC. Some communities have decided to go conservation, others have decided to also use the forest that they have to end or to have some economic activities. But then also, there were issues surrounding what about other lands, customary lands, that is not really forest, is not considered a forest land, or they have not even gone through the process. So we used evidence, grassroots evidence, just as she was saying. We went to Parliament, we advocated, and then we have the Land Rights Act that was very inclusive. It has a whole chapter dedicated for customary collective land, where there is that ownership. It has been respected, it has been acknowledged in that law. But then, there are also safeguards for women, let me say that. But then, the issue is, like everybody is saying, is around implementation. Because even within our local communities, there are some discriminatory cultural norms and practices that we need to deal with, especially the ones that go against women. Because it's not easy, just as somebody said, you have that in the law, but then actual implementation on the ground becomes difficult when traditional leaders who are the custodian of these customary norms and practices are not even aware of what is written in the law. So one example is in Liberia, we say a woman is a property, and a property doesn't own do not own a property. So land is a property, and a woman is a property. So a woman does not own land. Meanwhile, the law tells us that women and men are equal, and they all live in the community. So we need, I mean, that's the essence of what I'm saying, that we need to deal with the traditional practices. That is harmful, and it's not encouraging women to be able to advance their livelihood. We also need to, there are issues surrounding community organizations. I think we've talked a lot, so I am not going there. Yes. And then, like I mentioned, the 2006 law and then the customary rights law in Liberia also helped for the collaborative management of forests, where communities and governments co-manage, and we have a typical example as the East Nimba Nature Reserve. So I will end here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to my next colleague. He wants to make a statement from the podium, but with only 3 minutes. What is the situation, sir, with land rights?
Istiba, Aitma, Azul.